Good morning. It's very early here in Saudi Arabia. Today is actually the last day of final exams for our 2015 spring semester. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is John McCauley. I'm an English teacher. I grew up in New York, not New York City, but a suburb of Long Island, about an hour outside of the city called Elwood. Learning English, my education. Well, I couldn't help but learn English. I learned English from my family and my friends around the neighborhood. It's my first language, and it was inevitable that I was going to learn English. But in terms of my education, I had very good teachers in public school, in the Elwood Public School that I went to. Good teachers, and my mom was also a really big influence on all of us, my brothers and my sister and I, doing very well in school. I did well in all of my subjects when I was younger, but when I was older, when I got a little bit older, I got very interested in things like reading and writing, in particular literature and philosophy. I've been an English teacher now for more than a decade. I started teaching in high school in the States, and then for the past 5 years or so, I've been teaching ESL students, both in the States and now abroad in Saudi Arabia. I should tell you that besides being a teacher, I'm also a writer. I'm working on a novel right now that I started in October, and I'm many hundreds of pages into it. I have some of it right here. I've been working on it a little bit this morning. I do everything, I'll give you a sense of that. I do everything first draft with a pen in a notebook, and then I read it over, and if I like what I've done, then I will type it up, which I expect to do this summer to revise much of my novel. Here we are grading the writing section of our final exam. This is Dr. Terry working hard. Dr. Terry is from Canada. He spent more than 15 years in South Korea. This is Dr. Joseph, Dr. Yusuf. They call us doctor here at the university. Mm-hmm. Dr. Joseph is from Buffalo.
Well,
born in
Buffalo. Live in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Okay, so born in Buffalo, lives in Minnesota. Over here we have Dr. Rana. Dr. Rana is from Pakistan, and Dr. Muhammad is also from Pakistan. They have been teaching English for many years, much of it here in Saudi Arabia. So this is the team of teachers that I work with here at Imam University. Let me now, if I can, talk a little bit about the idea of teaching a class size of 25 or more students. When I taught high school, English in the United States, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, my class sizes were typically between 12 and 20 students, more like 12 to 16, and that was a very manageable size for me. When I taught ESL in Denver, Colorado, class sizes were between probably 4 on the low end and maybe as many as 14 on the high end. But 14 felt huge at the time. But the experience here in Saudi Arabia at Imam University, we have 150 students in the medical program. So sections of typically 35 to 40 students in each of four sections. So that has forced me to deal with 35 students in a class, which has become very manageable for me. I would say it would have been intimidating for me and was very daunting on the first days. I was not able to do as much one-on-one work, which I like to do, but it was more effective if I could break the students up into pairs, working in pairs or sometimes in smaller groups, and then I was able to go around interacting with them accordingly. In terms of adapting to a new culture, Um, I don't think you're ever really finished adapting to a new culture. One of the things you notice almost right away is that some of the things are going to be similar to what you know from home, and other things are going to be very different. It's important not to have expectations and to be flexible, to keep an open mind. But I think even when you think you're flexible, it's only natural that you will be surprised by some of the things that you experience. Along with flexibility, I think a sense of curiosity can help you adjust to a new place. Um, the people that you meet will tell you about their culture, the places that you go. In the beginning, I remember everything was sort of new. That was the wonderful thing about it, was nothing was good or bad. Everything was just new. After a time, you realize you're not new anymore, and you develop a little bit of a routine. You have to you have to live there. You can't just be surprised. It's not like being on vacation. So I think patience is another important thing. If you can be patient and curious along with being flexible, I think it will improve your experience tremendously. I want to talk a little bit now about my education, in particular how my learning informs my teaching. When I was younger, I had a lot of the same interests that most American boys get interested in: sports, movies, music, girls, cars, hanging out with my friends, the typical things that guys are excited about. As I got older, I became more and more curious about learning. And when I was in my master's program, I was lucky enough to encounter some of the greatest books ever written, ever published throughout the history of intellectual thought. What I learned is that one of the most important things a good teacher can do is ask questions. It's not so much the answers that we find as the questions that begin to lead us on our learning. And that really is very much a part of my teaching approach as well. One of the most satisfying things for me as a teacher is to see when students become aware of ideas. They begin to become curious about ideas, things more than just getting grades. And they begin to think about the outside world and to think of themselves in the world. How do they fit into the world? And what are some of the problems that we face individually and as a society today and moving forward into the future? So that's really my goal as a teacher, is to get students to begin asking questions and to take an approach of curiosity to their lives, so that they feel like regardless of what they do for their career or in their lives, they feel like lifelong learners.